Thank you. I have to go on, and I would like to ask Fintan, from the public health perspective, what do you feel is the most effective way of expressing the HIA findings?
Well, I'd like to start by congratulating Tony Hadley and his colleagues for what they're doing in Hong Kong. I think taking on a battle like they're doing is just really, really important. And the history of progress in the USA and even in Europe shows that this is a battle. And I think very often we talk and think of risk communication as if we were putting it into a neutral environment where everybody is eager to base what they do on evidence. And it's salutary to be reminded so clearly that that's not the case. I spoke briefly about this with Peter van den Hazel before the meeting, and Peter said, and I liked what he said, well, you know, we've tried to be sensible over the years with the same message that air pollution is bad for you. And he said, and I think we need to shake it up a little for a new generation and a new time. So I thought, well, what's one way of turning this around? And it is that clean air is good for you, and of course many people have been saying that for a while. And that leads me, in the context of the discussion around death and life years, to focusing, like Berta said, on healthy life years. And I wonder if we could show images of people in their 60s and 70s in good health, playing with their grandchildren and so on, and say, look, you know, would you like that? Because my sense of focusing on life lost is that people think, well, you know, at 79, I'm really going to be struggling anyway, and who cares? So that's one piece. And the second piece that I take from what Joel said is, and I was going to say this anyway, people are much more concerned with things that are going to happen or likely to happen immediately than 40 or 50 years' time. So if we can strengthen the message on what are the immediate benefits of clean air. But we can say, I mean, I was just thinking of phrases like, you are what you breathe. Now, I really don't want to be committed long-term to these phrases. I was just brainstorming things. Is there a different way of getting the message across? Air pollution gives you bad breath. You know? And I could take from what Nino put up about the causes of myocardial infarction, clean air means safer sex. Now, who would buy into that? So, as you can see, I'm kind of playing with the idea of trying to put some sort of a positive spin on this. That's it, really. I think we've made a lot of progress the way that we've done things, and at least maybe in a less public place than this, that we should just toy with some alternatives and kick them around some more.
Thank you, Fintan. Aaron, what do you think?
Well, I'm not sure what the question is here, because if the question is, I mean, it seems like the question is, how do you mobilize the population or populations to be militant in support of stricter air quality regulations or other interventions to reduce air pollution and improve health? Well, that's really a political question, and it's really not a question of sort of what is the most scientifically justifiable way to express the health effects of air pollution. I have my views on that, but I think what we're discussing is really the former. So I think it's important to think about and contrast the situation in the United States with, say, the situation in Hong Kong. I mean, frankly, the United States has been very successful in lowering levels of air pollution to levels that are quite low, and there's huge there has been broad public support for improving environmental quality, including air pollution, certainly that's been a struggle. It's been a struggle that's involved, you know, competing interests that said that you know, the economy was going to suffer if you did that and all the rest of it, and that's been a struggle over many years. But what's never been in question is whether people in the United States wanted improved air quality and a healthy environment. They did, and that's been the basis, you know, for the air quality improvements that we've seen, and for the air, for the Clean Air Act and so forth. So the question is, excuse me. So the question is, what's going on in Hong Kong? I mean, Hong Kong has got 2 major universities with incredible intellectual resources, as you've seen demonstrated here today, and much more research actually on the health effects of air pollution. It's got an Civic Exchange, which is a NGO that is very skilled at public communication and working with the press and everything else. It's actually got deep pockets in the form of organizations like the Jockey Club, which supports advocacy. The problem in Hong Kong is figuring out the right things to say to the public about what air pollution does. I think they've done that, and I mean, I think it's a political struggle in Hong Kong around that. And so the discussion, perhaps is about how that political struggle gets conducted and what the role of science is and advocacy is in that. But those are my views about this discussion.
Just as a reminder, what we are trying to discuss here is how to best translate the scientific findings to different stakeholders. So
well,
we can.
I guess, okay, well, let me be clear then. I don't think that the reason that the situation is in Hong Kong is as it is, as Tony has described it, is we haven't figured out the right metric to talk about. Okay, I don't think the reason that we've been successful in the United States in achieving very good air quality, really, and in the UK as well. Not that it can't be improved or that it doesn't have that air pollution doesn't have impacts, but the reason for that is not because somehow we figured out the right thing to say or the right way to talk about the health effects of air pollution. I mean, I think that helps, that contributes, but I don't think that's really the problem. I'm very interested in discussing the different metrics. I work on these problems, but I don't think that's at root the cause. So if we just find the right thing to say, that's really what's going to remove the obstacles. I just don't think that's true.
It's not the cause, but we are trying to improve the way we communicate. Joel, you wanted to add something?
Well, I just wanted to expand really on what Aaron said. I mean, if you take the U.S. example, back in the 40s and 50s, there was no public interest in controlling air pollution. There was clearly an industrial interest in not controlling air pollution. We didn't control air pollution. Levels were terrible. That changed in the 60s. In the 60s, people became energized, and there was a large environmental movement publicly, which put pressure on legislatures to pass laws. And they had pressure from the industrial interest, but when the public interest got elevated high enough, people began to realize they weren't going to get elected if they voted against the Clean Air Act, and the Clean Air Act was passed in 1970. So what happened is something happened that turned around public opinion, A, and B, public opinion had a big impact on the elected legislature because people ran in individual districts and they could lose, and it didn't matter, you didn't have a party list, and if you were high up, you were automatically in. If the people in your town were pissed off, you were out. And so it seems to me that what's happening in Hong Kong is presumably a combination of the fact that A, the public isn't energized enough, and B, they don't exactly have that same kind of elected legislature, and so people aren't going to get voted out.
Right.